Welcome to The Journey, Deliverance Church at 55. 55 years ago, that's 1970, Deliverance Church was just an idea, a vision by a man of God who heard from God. Apostle Dr. Joe Kayo held his first service, and that day, from that one service, Deliverance Church has grown to have an impact in this country of Kenya and internationally. And today, I'm joined by the head of the secretariat, Reverend Dr. Margaret Muchai, to come and give us the story and to start us the journey of Deliverance Church at 55. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you
and
so
congratulations.
much. Thank you for having
55
me.
years ago.
Not a mean feat.
55 years ago, that's a father, that's a grandfather.
Yeah.
That's someone who is mature. That's someone, in fact, in our past was going for retirement.
I am telling you. Well, not really in the past. Just a few years ago.
Yeah.
55 years was
You start now going for retirement age. Okay, I would like you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself as we start the journey. This is a journey that will go across the many nations and countries and counties in the country as we hear the story of 55, a story of transformation, a story of faith, a story of tears, joys, everything.
Sure.
And we are happy to have you start us off.
Thank you so very much for having me here. My name is Reverend Dr. Margaret Wanjiru Muchai. Reverend Dr. Margaret Wanjiru Muchai started working with Deliverance Church in the month of end February, early March, the year 2003. I am a mother of two adults, one married, just about to be a grandma, and I am a minister of the gospel, currently pastoring Deliverance Church 2 Rivers, one of the fastest growing churches in Nairobi. For a while, pastored under Deliverance Church, House of Bread, under the leadership of Bishop Dr. Mark Karaoke, and at the same time, served Deliverance Church really for the last 22 years. My prime years have been spent in Deliverance Church. 22
years, you've been the head of secretariat. We'd love to know the journey. When you entered in that office, then did you walk into this boardroom with staff waiting for you, applauding, giving you flowers, and having all these handover ceremonies that we see? Because by that time, it was 23 years old by that time.
It was.
Yes.
It was. Now, interestingly, when I walked into Deliverance Church, charged with the responsibility, really, of beginning a secretariat. I think what I need to say at this point is that Deliverance Church, up till then, did not have a secretariat.
Yeah.
It had been operating from the General Overseer's office. So during Apostle Joe Kayo's time, and then during Bishop William Timising's time, it was operating from Isili. And then when Bishop Mark took over in the year 2000, more or less his congregation in Nakuru became like the head congregation. Then in 2003, when they decided to begin a secretariat, interestingly enough, I walked into an office. It was in Fiba Radio, someone Kayawe Road in Kilimani. And what was given to me was just two files. Just two files. I think one with a few title deeds and one with one or two government communications. And I was told, there you have it now, begin the secretariat. Wow.
Did you have a staff waiting, a team of people waiting for you?
No.
So you are the staff, you are everything.
I was the staff. I found a secretary. I found a secretary and I found a cleaner. And both of who really didn't have history of what Deliverance Church was all about. So I started an issue of gathering information. One of my most memorable, very, very memorable interactions with the leadership was when I joined them at the DCC that was happening somewhere in Limuru, at Jumia in Limuru. And I remember walking into the DCC that morning, and what hit me was they were all men and I was the only woman. They were all men and I was the only woman.
Just to tell them that there was the new constitution had not come in. So there's the two dads was still fine.
Okay. Fine, not two dads. At that time it was not two dads. It was 3/3.
3/3 full.
So when I walked in and I discovered I was the only woman, I still remember and I reminisce those days, and I sat in a corner right at the edge of the table listening to this man, great men of God, great ideas, and once or twice they kept repeating amongst themselves, and they would say Deliverance Church is a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
I caught that. I thought, if it's a sleeping giant, then this giant must wake up.
Yeah.
It is time for the giant to wake up. So the more they spoke, the more I got the burden to make sure that this giant wakes up. And I remember when I went back to the office and we started strategies, I would sit with the General Overseer, Bishop Dr. Margaret, and sometimes I would just accompany him to meetings to hear him cast the vision of what he wanted done. And then I knew, and I knew that everything he said as a technical person, I was the one who was going to lay out how that was going to play out. I got a lot of help from my boss, the General Secretary, Bishop John Brown Masinde, and I would sit down with him sometimes and he would just talk. And when he spoke, I would hear where their heart is. They are a bunch of exceptionally great leaders. They lead by example. They are servant leaders. They don't sit on high horses. They were easy to work with. So little by little, I began to put systems together. I had come to Deliverance Church from having been a managing director in an organization in South Africa. So I came in with a few leadership skills, admin skills, and that helped me. That helped me. At that time, I think we were probably doing about 650, between 450 and 650 congregations. Yes. And we were at a level where the current apostolic bishops were the regional overseers. So it was like working with Bishop Masinde as the regional overseer of Nairobi. It was great. Bishop Kimani and the rest. And they made demands on me, which the Lord helped me achieve. And before long, that place that we had taken became vibrant. We got an accountant, we got other staff members to come and assist. And today we have a full-fledged secretariat. I think the rest is history. What we need to say is that from that very humble beginning, today Deliverance Church has grown. I guess we're going to be speaking about that sometime. But we are close, if not over, 3,000 congregations today, and also spread to other countries.
Wow.
So when I look at it, Deliverance Church, when I came in, was very much like what we are seeing here.
Yeah.
This is land. You know, when you look at land like this, it looks almost like it's talking to you. It's saying, I have potential. Make me what you want me to
Dream
make.
anything
So
enough.
this is very much a sleeping giant. Because here, when you look around, you can see buildings that have come up. You look around, there are buildings that are coming up, and all of them are sitting on land like this. Yet we have this empty land. So when I came in, Deliverance Church was a powerful volcano waiting to erupt. And years later, at the slightest of support, what we are looking at today is the sleeping giant woke up.
Woke up.
Not only did it wake up, but Deliverance Church has some policies. It's so well structured that I've been here for the last 22 years. I can probably count on my fingertips if there have been any cases that called for discipline. The structure, the running of Deliverance Church, very well embraced by all our pastors. And I must say, it was a great joy. I live with the history of remembering moments when we would go to places and Bishop Mark and the leadership would go to speak to the pastors. At that time, we were a little bit like this. And they would go to find very hungry pastors.
Wow.
Such that sometimes they would look at each other and say, Margaret, come. Before we begin the meeting, go and buy soda and bread.
For people to eat fast.
For people to eat fast.
Wow.
Before we have an administrative meeting. So when I see them today, cars parked everywhere, paying for their own hotel bills, I can tell the sleeping giant
finally woke up.
Yes, it did.
You've spoken for your journey from South Africa. By that time, were you a pastor?
No, I was not. I was not a pastor. I came in and took on the administrative role of being the national coordinator, working under the general secretary. I was not a pastor. I was a minister of the gospel in the sense that I used to do ministry. I used to speak. I used to minister to women, and I was an very active member of my church. I did do a lot of talking from the position where I was in. So when I came here in the year 2005, December,
Yeah.
Bishop Mark decided to move from Nakuru and come to Nairobi.
Yeah.
And he came and he began a congregation at Aga Khan Walk.
Uh-huh.
And he invited me to join him as the associate pastor.
Wow.
So my pastoral journey really strongly began on the 5th of December 2005.
So we are talking 20 years of your pastoral journey.
Yes, of my pastoral journey.
That's something we love. We also speak about because we are speaking to you first as the National Secretariat head, but also as your journey as a pastor.
Yeah.
Because those are two different journeys that come. And also maybe for people to understand, when you came, what was your background in terms of education back before? What was your background in that moment?
Amazingly, like I said, when I came just years before I came, probably for the last 5 years before I came back here, I was the managing director of an organization in South Africa called Rema Christian Service Foundation. I headed up, or was the executive director of the service arm of Rema Bible Church, a church that used to probably have about a congregation of 26,000.
Wow.
So I headed up the service arm where we used to run children's home, hospitals, hospices, do community projects. I think I was running a staff complement of about 600. So with about 14 other directors and probably about almost 20 or so other managers overseeing projects. So when I came to Deliverance, now that's what I need to tell you.
Yeah.
Just before I came, Bishop Mark had come to South Africa. And I took him around to see what I was doing in all the projects that I was doing. And I remember when he was just about to leave the car, he looked at me and said, "Margaret, would you come and do for Deliverance what you do for this organization?"
Yeah.
I don't want to say that, but I want to say I laughed.
Yeah.
And I thought to him, come back to Kenya. You know the one of
yeah.
the Sarah kind of laughter?
I'm already a
Sarah
diaspora
kind of
person.
laughter.
Yeah.
I'm already, what is your problem?
Somebody.
I'm already comfortable here.
Yeah.
And amazingly, that must have been around the month of either May or March, because about 3 or 4 months later, I came back.
Wow. Wow.
I came back. And when I came back, I went straight to his office in Nakuru, and I let him know I was back. And I remember him looking at me under very hard circumstances, and he looked at me and he said, "Margaret, you're home." And then he told me, "I will set up an appointment for the leadership to interview you."
Yeah.
Came back in August of 2002, and he set up the interview in February of 2003. Interestingly, he forgot that I had come back. And you know, when you read in the Bible that the butler and the baker and Joseph, and Joseph telling him, "Please, when you get back to your position, remember me." Until the fullness of God's time, you don't get remembered.
Yeah.
Because Bishop Mark, honestly, and I guess it's because he's busy, he didn't call for the interview. So I was there waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm like, hey. Then in February, I think our late mom, his wife Joyce, reminded him. She called me and she says, "Hey, what are you doing? I see you around, and you said you were coming to work with Deliverance." And then I told her, "I'm still waiting for the bishop to set up an interview." Let me tell you, it is good to have a mother that is concerned and that is involved in ministry. Because within the next week, the interview was set up. And I was interviewed by the leadership, now the Apostolic Council, and they were willing to give me a try. And I remember looking at them and saying, "Give me 3 months. If I don't make it within 3 months, not only will I tell you, I don't want you to demote me, I want you to show me the door." In 3 months, God had done enough for them to have decided that they were going to have me stay.
22 years later?
22 years later, the girl is still doing her rounds around.
And which is amazing, because the reason I was asking why you are pastor then, because when you come to head the secretariat that involves over 3,000 congregation, do you have the experience working with pastors? Do you have the experience of working with professionals? Because over the years, as we'll be seeing in the journey, Deliverance Church has also been able to come with the pastors and even professionals who are in the marketplace now, who are part of this. And we need the head to be someone who can be able to coordinate that. But the story you are giving us of two files is not what we are seeing here. Because what we are seeing here is not a story of two giant. Not a story of two files, not a story of one cleaner, one person for the T-girl.
Yeah.
But these are massive, massive headquarters that the Lord has been able. I think we can walk in as now we speak about the journey of Deliverance Church.
To the glory of the Lord. I think everybody who's watching this building, will know that it can only take God.
And what's the loans that you have now based on this?
Well, amazingly,
Yeah.
when the sleeping giant woke
Woke
up,
up, yeah.
it became what they had perceived it was going to become.
Yeah.
This building that you're looking at right here,
Yeah.
which is the Deliverance Church International Headquarters,
Yeah.
was built cash by Deliverance Church. There was
No
not a
debt.
single, no debt. There was no debt, even in the sense of saying we borrowed and
Yeah,
paid.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We didn't borrow.
It was cash
It-
from the same pastors you're talking about. In a
Yes.
meeting, you had to go buy sodas and
From the
bread.
same ones that used to be bought soda
Sodas
and
and
bread,
everything.
this is what
They
they could do.
funded this.
The power of unity,
Yeah.
the power of obedience, the power of loyalty to the call of their leaders. I can honestly say that this is a sure sign that together we are very strong. When the sleeping giant woke up, there has never been a time when
Yeah.
the leadership decided to go north and there
they
were
could-
people going south.
South, yeah.
That united force built this house cash, and I guess they are doing much more. There is a lot more.
So as we walk in, this building was dedicated, that is in 2022,
Yes,
2nd
it-
of December, yeah?
2nd of December 2022.
Yeah.
This building was dedicated by the General Overseer,
Yeah.
Bishop Dr. Mark Karaoke. It stands here as a testimony
Yeah.
of the faithfulness of God.
Yeah.
It stands here as a testimony that God, that God that we serve, the God of our forefathers, the God that woke Apostle Joe Kayo
Yeah.
up and told him, begin a ministry.
Begin a
This is
ministry.
a testimony because this comes from a dream of a man.
A man, yeah.
Handing it over, handing the mantle
next
over
generation,
to
yeah.
another careful leader
Yeah.
who did not destroy.
Yeah.
Bishop William Timising did his
Yeah.
bit and then handed the ministry over to Bishop Dr. Mark Karaoke.
Yeah.
So when you look at this, you see stability.
Yeah.
When you look at this, you see an issue of I don't know what to say. It's stability. I want to talk about a long life.
And the continuity also.
Continuity.
Yeah, yeah.
That we are in chapter 3 now.
Yeah.
There was Apostle Joe Kayo's chapter 1. There's Bishop William Timising as chapter 2, and this has been done in chapter 3. I am going to live to see what chapter 4, 5, and the rest do. But right now, like I said, this entire building was built cash by the members of Deliverance Church because they chose to work together in unity. Very much describes Psalms 133. Behold how
Amen.
good and pleasant it is when brethren dwell in unity. When you look at it, it says, for there God commands a blessing,
blessing
and
among
life
them.
forevermore.
Amen.
And that's what we're looking at here.
Inside here, what do you have? Maybe for someone who has not come here, what are the rooms? Is it one big hall? Is it one church? Is it one? What is inside here?
Inside here we have offices. We have the office section, but we also have a space where people can rent for conferences and for meetings. And right up we have an amphitheater
Yeah.
that can seat 600 that currently also has a church that runs from there every Sunday.
Every Sunday,
Yes,
yeah.
so we do have that going already. We have intentions at the back of this building to build up accommodation rooms.
Yeah.
We had hoped we would have the hotel up and running, and we thank God. I think we thank God that we are the far that we have come. So yes, Deliverance Church is pushing on. This headquarters marks, if you walk around this Githongori Road,
Yeah.
it is said the Deliverance Church headquarters looks the most prettiest, and you have no doubt, it
Yeah.
really is a pretty building. Yes.
Thank you. Let's get it. Oh. And from this place, I can see the recognition of the sponsors. I'll call them
the sponsors.
the
you're right.
sponsors of the building. Who recognition appreciation Deliverance Church headquarters was built with the tithes and offering from members from Deliverance Church local congregations under the leadership of Bishop Dr. Mark K. Karaoke,
That-
General Overseer.
That does tell you Deliverance Church is a very family church.
Yeah.
It's a very family church.
Yeah.
And under the leadership of Dr. Mark, who always appreciates and recognizes the efforts
Yeah.
of all the members. He was like, we can't call this building any other thing.
Yeah.
And he felt this needs to stand there as a testimony
Yeah.
that this building was built from the faithful tithers. And those that
offerings,
give
yeah.
offering. Many people say pastors wanakula pesa
Yeah.
za They're eating the money from the
Sadaka,
congregation.
yes, yeah.
But now the tithes and the offerings put this up. So yes, a recognition and kudos to all Deliverance Church members. You guys are great, and you know it. You know it. Yeah. So finally, we are home.
Yeah, wow. This is a beautiful space here.
Yes, it is.
And we have a lift on this other side, and we have stairs in and out. This is amazing. Is this the only setup that Deliverance Church has in terms of buildings like this?
No. It's not the only.
Yeah.
It's not the only. One of the things you will realize about Deliverance Church is that the Deliverance Church allows individual churches.
Yeah.
We don't run from a central place, so we don't limit churches onto what they can do. There are other churches that have actually put up places. For example, we have Ukombozi Retreat Center. That is manned by Deliverance Church Kasarani, or Zimmerman, and when we have conferences, we take it there. You of course know of the church that Bishop Mark built in Nakuru, currently being run by Reverend Elijah Mwangi. We hold our conferences there because the facility is big enough. You go to Umoja and see what they've done. They run a Bible school, they have got campuses. So Deliverance Church runs in such a manner that it is not inhibiting. It is like you do, go as far as you can, we will celebrate you and celebrate with you. So yes, there are in various countries. Oh, you should go to West Pokot.
Yes, in fact, that's all it was. Are we in towns only? Are we in the big cities alone?
No. We went to West Pokot and we found Dr. Tom Gaywar there has done a 5,000 seater.
Wow.
Right in West Pokot. You go to Bungoma and see what Dr. Reverend Jackson Ongeri has done. I think he's a 3,000 seater. And everywhere you go, you will find their pastors that have outdone themselves. Deliverance Church has actually become a firebrand. We are growing. We grow every year. A couple of hundreds of new congregations get added onto the ministry. And
apart from Kenya, is Deliverance Church presence in other countries, maybe even under different ministry names, but do you have our presence there?
One, they might be. But let me talk about the ones that I know. From Deliverance Church Umoja, efforts of Deliverance Church Umoja planted Deliverance Church Zambia.
Wow.
I think Zambia has now gone on and touching DRC Congo. And we have churches that are directly linked to us from Tanzania. We have churches that are directly linked to us, or sister churches in Uganda. We've got something going on in Namibia. We've got something going on in America. So yes, we do have different countries where Deliverance churches are. Now, the most interesting thing is, even in Kenya, most of the Pentecostal churches, and this happens a lot of times, I will go into a conference or walk somewhere and somebody's going to walk up and say, Reverend Margaret, I was raised up in Deliverance. It is one of the oldest Pentecostal churches. And let me tell you, to be very, very honest, that there's many pastors that actually grew up, brought up, raised up in Deliverance Church, and now they're very, very accomplished wherever they are.
Wow.
Amazingly, even in the market field. I've gone out to some of our prominent politicians. When you talk to them, they tell you, I was raised up in Deliverance. And so Deliverance has given birth to many successful people in the marketplace, many politicians, and also many business people.
When is the main celebration? Where and when? What are the dates here in Kenya?
Here in Kenya? Here in Kenya, our main celebration for Deliverance Church at 55 is going to be happening at the Jamhuri ASK grounds here in Nairobi at the Jamhuri ASK grounds. And we're going to be running a conference from the 2nd of December, the 3rd and the 4th. That will be a conference running. Then on the 5th, we shall have thousands and thousands of Deliverance Church family members that will come from everywhere. So our big celebration, we are expecting anything up to 30, 40, 50,000 people to show up, and all that will be happening at the ASK grounds off Ngong Road, where they usually have the Nairobi Agricultural Show. That's where we shall be. Big celebration. You want to come and get an impartation of how to do it well, how to do it big, show up. It's going to be a memorable time.
Amazing. I would like us to go and sit down and maybe get a feel of Deliverance Church at 100.
Okay.
So before that, there's some things I want us to get at the middle, and then as we look at Deliverance Church at 100.
Join our General Overseer, Bishop Dr. Mark Karaoke, and all our apostolic bishops for a grand celebration like no other. From 2nd to 5th December at the ASK Grounds, Nairobi, experience 4 days of power-packed ministry as you thank God for 55 glorious years. Deliverance Church at 55. All are welcome.
Yes, now the journey, as you can see, we are inside the secretariat. I just remembered at some point when you're talking about the secretariat and the way it is now. Maybe before we go to the structure of the secretariat, there's something you mentioned about the current apostolic team who have been able to lead Deliverance Church to where it is under the leadership of the General Overseer. You mentioned they were the regional overseers.
Yes, they were the regional overseers.
And then we had only 7 regions.
Yes, we only had 7 regions.
Around there.
We had about 7 regions at the beginning. Those regions were actually headed up, like I said, by the current apostolic council. Yeah. Now, for many of us who don't know, because I think there's quite a couple of congregations that came long after when they had become the apostolic team. We're talking about Bishop John Brown Masinde, and Bishop Jimmy Kimani being over the Nairobi region. Bishop Mark Karaoke from the central region where Nakuru, Nyandarua and the rest of the parts were. Then we had Bishop Benjamin Kipruto, the late, who was in Kericho. Then we had Bishop George Gichana, who was doing around Eldoret and North Rift side. Then, of course, we had Bishop Paulo Selu, who was in Nyanza. And then crossing over this way, we had Bishop Kaniaru, who was overseeing, who did a lot of work in Muranga and the surroundings. So primarily, let me say this, that Deliverance Church is a result of the hard work of those 7 regional overseers then, because most of the churches that we have were opened up by them individually. I mean, stories are told, and I'm sure when you get to talk to the Apostolic Council, they will tell you. I never forget one of the stories they tell us about having gone to Meru, and they slept in this. Have you ever heard that story? They slept in this little room on these 2 mattresses, and there were like 6 of them. And I remember them joking when they look at each other, it's like they had to go 1, 2, 3, let's stand. That's how low, or rather how much they give of themselves. They didn't think about beds. They didn't think about luxurious things when they went out to open new churches in different places. That was all the way in Meru. They give stories. They give stories. Let me say they give stories, because you hear like one time, I think it was Bishop Kaniaru, Bishop Masinde and them, they went to Muranga and there was this river. It was a very rainy season. And so Bishop Kaniaru packed his car and they went out preaching. And when they came back, the car was gone. You know, the waters had carried the car. They saw the wheel. They saw a few things. And they have never recovered that car till today. Cost of the ministry. What I'm trying to say is that the ministry cost them dearly. But from them, we had that 7. The very first regions, I think, to be multiplied was the Eastern region. The Eastern region is that was multiplied into Machakos, Kitui, and Makueni, bringing the regions to about 9. And then a few years later, a lot of the regions had grown, very many congregations very fast, very many sub-regions. And the wisdom of the current Apostolic Council was that they get multiplied so that each regional overseer could have a smaller region so that he can effectively be able to touch base with all the sub-regional overseers. And I know that sounds like Greek, but I will explain that in a moment. And then we went to about 15 regions. From the 15 regions, when we multiplied next, we were 21 regions. Currently, we are at 42.
7, 15, 21, now 42.
Now 42.
And there's something you mentioned about regions. Maybe for someone who
doesn't
does not
understand what it, I know.
what are regions?
Yeah. So
how does a region come in place?
So the administrative structure of Deliverance Church is that we will begin right from the
local
bottom,
church,
where we talk about the local church being the place where individual members are.
Yeah.
So individual members that gather under one roof are called a congregation. I guess that we know. So several congregations within a certain vicinity form what we call a sub-region.
Sub-region.
Yes, and that sub-region is given a sub-regional overseer. So one of the pastors of those congregations is appointed into a sub-regional overseer's office, and then members of the council of that sub-region is made up by pastors within that sub-region. So they have a council that oversees the needs, the wants in that sub-region. Now, in every area, you will have a sub-region, which is normally a cluster of between 5 and 15 churches. So within a wider area, you have a couple of sub-regions. Those sub-regions now are put together under the leadership of one person, and that is what formulates a region.
So there's
region
five, 7 local churches form a sub-region.
Yes.
Then
a few
several sub-regions form
a
region.
Yes. Okay. So a region will normally have anything between 63. We've had some regions grow up to over 200 churches, because within that fraternity, that's where the multiplication begins to happen. Where when a pastor raises up a person in his church or has identified a person who has a pastoral calling. Now, Deliverance Church does not plant churches. I think I need to say that at this point. Deliverance Church does not plant churches, but it plants sons. That's a very foreign term to many people. They don't understand how that works. But basically what that means is that every pastor in Deliverance Church has an understudy. And when they grow up and they look like they are ready to handle a congregation, then you will send them out. You will plant them out. That means you will give them spiritual oversight. You will hold their hand. You will identify where you need them to go and preach, and you will walk alongside them until they are stable to stand on their own. But anytime they hit a dead end, before they look for anybody else, they know they have a father, who they can run to. And so most of the churches, the Deliverance Church begins never close, because they have that stability of being supported by the church that sent them out. And so multiplications are continuous. Every time a son has been raised and is ready to go, the son is sent up. That's why just 22 years ago, we only had 7 regions. And 22 years later, we're talking about 42 and growing. Number of congregations, anything between 450 and 600 in the year that I came. Now, we are just nearing, if we've not surpassed, the 3,000 mark.
The 3,000 mark.
Yes.
And now these regions are the ones now form. The 42 regions
now the 42 regions are what forms the Deliverance Church International in Kenya.
In Kenya,
Because in Tanzania, we have, I think, going almost now over 50 congregations. In Zambia, we have also probably 70, 80 congregations going on. In DRC, so when we talk about that setting, that is right now in Kenya. But Deliverance Church International oversees even the congregations that are outside our country. Although each of them is headed up by a person in charge of the work that is going on in that country. For example, in Zambia, we have Bishop Fortune Mwiza, who is overseeing the work that is going on in Zambia. I think he's started a few churches in Malawi, and he's also started a few churches in Congo, a part of Congo. We also have a Reverend Ongonge, who is right now in Mozambique, in Nampula, and he's also, I think the last I spoke to him, he had, I think, about 8 congregations.
That are coming up.
Yes, so Deliverance Church is growing, and it's grown beyond Kenya. So that's the Kenyan structure that I gave you, which is replicated wherever Deliverance Church is, yes.
And on top of that, we have the apostolic team now that's...
Now, when you get to that, all those regional overseers who oversee a region are actually appointed by the governing council of Deliverance Church, which is made up of the apostolic leaders. Our apostolic leaders currently heading the team is none other than our general overseer, Bishop Dr. Margaret. He is assisted by the general secretary, Bishop John Brown Masinde, and there's an Assistant General Secretary, Bishop Jimmy Kemani.
Yeah.
Our National Treasurer is Bishop George Gichana, and then we have 2 members of the council, Bishop Paul Oselu, and we also have Bishop Simon Kaniero, who are members of the council. So those are the ones that have the appointing authority of all the regional overseers. Then together, all the regional overseers and one other member, all regional overseers are allowed to come with one member into what we call the Deliverance Church Governing Council.
The DCC
where
now.
The DCC.
Yeah.
That's our top governing council, where the Apostolic Council members and the Deliverance Church regional overseers, one member representing every region, sit together and form the Deliverance Church Council, which is the highest governing council. We do have an executive council,
Yeah.
which is basically made up of the apostolic leaders, and that council has 1 or 2 other members, and their work is to be able to quickly implement things that have been passed at the Deliverance Church Council. So basically, I sit on the Deliverance Church Council by virtue of being the national coordinator.
And thus now being the national coordinator and also now the head of secretariat of Deliverance Church that supports and implements the DCC.
Yes, the actions that the DCC passes.
Yeah.
It's basically our duty. 2 things. One, we support, implement, and work with the leadership to make sure that everything they have passed is implemented. But on the other side, we also offer technical advice because we are with the pastors on the ground. So if they need figures, if they need to know what's happening within a certain area, it is the secretariat that will find out and bring that information back to the DCC.
So maybe in just a small pictorial place, what's the secretariat that you had? What are the other departments? Or are you just like 22 years ago you walked in and you are alone? Are you still alone as a secretary?
No, I'm not alone. I thank God I'm not alone.
Yeah.
By the way, in one sense, when they appointed me the national coordinator, I did a lot more administrative work than coordinating because there wasn't much to coordinate then.
Yeah.
Then over the years, the church has grown, the ministry has grown, and yes, now I am a national coordinator because the Deliverance Church headquarters coordinates the work of the Daughters of Faith. That's the ladies' ministry.
Yeah.
The ladies' ministry, which is currently headed up by a lady called Reverend Eunice Rotich.
Yeah.
Then we have the men, we call them the Deliverance Church Eagles. That's headed up by Reverend Joseph Kivuva.
Yeah.
And then we have the youth.
Yeah.
That's headed up by Reverend Dan Gichana. And then we have what we call the Kingdom Generation.
Yeah.
That's headed up by Reverend Bethy Rongo.
Yeah.
Bethy Rongo.
These are these are the Sunday
Kingdom
school
Generation is our Sunday school and teens.
teams, yeah.
And then the youth, once you leave that, so we've got everybody covered.
Yeah.
Once you graduate from being a part of the Kingdom Generation ministry, you join the youth,
Okay.
where Reverend Dan Gichana is the head. And once you get to a point where you feel like a man,
Then
you go Deliverance Church Eagles.
Eagles.
And when you feel like a full-fledged woman, Mrs. Rotich, Reverend Eunice Rotich is waiting for you in the Daughters of Faith. So when you talk about coordination, all that is happening. That's happening from the secretariat. Not only do we coordinate that, but we coordinate all the other activities, things like the conferences.
Yeah, the conferences.
We have a Pastors and Spouses conference.
Yeah,
that
maybe
happens
just
every year.
in a nutshell, maybe you can mention the national conferences.
The national conferences, yes.
In
So,
a year, and maybe even the months that they happen.
Okay, so we do have the very first conference or gathering that happens every year, which is very, very pertinent to Deliverance Church, is that we have a prayer conference that begins every year. The first week of January every year, pastors gather in Nakuru, at the LCC in Nakuru, Deliverance Church Nakuru, and for a week they pray and fast. That's how we begin our year.
Yeah.
Then after that, there is what we call the apostolic visits.
Yeah.
This is where the Apostolic Council moves from region to region, casting the vision for the year. With praying for the members, releasing the anointing for them to succeed in the year. And that has become
milestone. It's become a flagship. It's become something that every Deliverance Church member looks forward to it. So they actually begin immediately after prayers the following week. They hit the road, and the Apostolic Council is on the road basically almost 5 days every week for the next 3-4 weeks until they've covered every region. So in some places, they've put the regions together to make it easier for them, but there are places where they visit region
After
to
region.
Yes, because they want to meet the pastors and they also want to meet the leadership. In that tour, I think which starts like the second week of January, normally it ends about mid-February.
Yeah.
So up until mid-February, the Apostolic Council is on the road with that agenda of blessing the people of God to succeed in the year. Then the next conference that comes after that is in the month of April. In the month of April, we have our National Daughters of Faith Conference, where all the ladies from everywhere gather. They've been gathering at the Kabarak University, sometimes drawing 6,000, 7,000 women, where they are ministered to. They're ministered to by various speakers, very selected speakers, and for the purpose of building up the women fraternity. And we've seen fruit. After that, in the month of June, we have the Pastors and Spouses Conference. This is a very special conference. This is a conference in which every pastor is allowed to bring their spouse.
Yeah.
And it's like a getaway, it's like a holiday time. But again, it's a refreshing time for these pastors who put in a lot of hard work. Just being able to come and stay in a hotel with your wife or with your husband where the pastor is female, and they're allowed to come and stay in a hotel for a couple of days. They pay their own hotels, but they come in large numbers. We see anything between 2,000, 3,000 show up. And it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing to see what has happened. One of the things that I do remember is when we started the Pastors and Spouses Conference, under Bishop Mark's direction, we used to pay for the accommodation of the pastors. So the pastors were only asked to pay their fare, but we would accommodate them. Then I can't remember which year that was when Bishop Mark stood up and said, now I think we have fed you enough. You're now grown up. So from next year, we're not going to pay your accommodation. My fear was, gosh, that conference is finished.
Yeah.
Let me shock you. That year, we got more pastors and spouses than we had ever got. So which means they were waiting to be told they had grown up. And since then, all our pastors and spouses come to our conferences, they pick up all their bills, except for the meals, and they do pay a registration fee that caters for their meals, and we have the most wonderful, beautiful conferences, and that's always happens the first week of June. From the first week of June to the next conference we see is in September, just ended recently, is the Deliverance Church Eagles.
Yeah.
The Eagles meeting is the Deliverance Church men's meeting. And again, we see men from far and wide. People used to say men don't go for conferences. That's not true. In Deliverance Church, men come for conferences. And not only do they come for conferences, but they are, you walk in there and it's crazy. I should have said, I think at the end of March, all the men gather in Nakuru for a night of prayer.
A night of prayer.
And one of the most beautiful scenes has been to see 2,000 men on their knees, crying for the nation, for their families, and for things that happen. And we know, as Deliverance Church, that God has blessed us with men that are prayerful. So the third week of September, we have the men's conference. Again, they gather in Nakuru. Last year, I think they gathered in Eldoret, and they keep announcing where they're going to gather. Again, a situation where we have very select speakers to come and speak into the men with the aim of stabilizing, strengthening men to become what God created them to become. Beautiful conferences, testimonies have been powerful, and change has been imminent. Then in December, we have what we call our Family Day, the one that is coming up. Always the first Friday of December. And Deliverance Church gathers everybody. So we have had them come 20,000, 10,000. During that time, we have seen, that's when Bishop chooses to do to ordain ministers. So We have them come around there, they are ordained publicly, there's celebration publicly, and it's been beautiful to watch Deliverance Church family gather together. And shortly after, we have the youth conference, the National Youth Conference. I think in August we also have the Kingdom Generation Conference. That's for all the teachers of the Kingdom Generation from all the country, and it's been beautiful. I think it's this year when we were able to launch the materials for Sunday school, that have been developed in Deliverance Church for Deliverance Church. And we are seeing other churches wanting to use the same material because it's been really, really very well done. So in December, we close with the youth conference.
With the youth conference.
Yes.
So that's the year for the Deliverance Church.
Yes.
And now, as you look, as Deliverance Church, when you walk into that secretariat, I want to believe if you are just two files with one or two documents, I don't think they had any other impact when you come in terms of investments. Is it about the word alone, or is it what has the church done in terms of congregation and in terms of empowering members and in terms of empowering the next generation? What are the plans the church has had over the years?
I think two or three things I must say that the current general overseer has been very daring. This I should have said earlier, that when we traveled around the country, most of our churches were mud and tin mabatis, and churches that met in shops.
Yeah.
Little shops. Not much for impact.
Yeah.
Last year when we went around, like I said, we were shocked. We went to places where we found 3,000 seaters, 5,000 seaters. And when you go to Umoja and see what Umoja has done, Umoja was one of those churches that were not very big then, but you have seen what it has transformed itself to today. So if you ask me what Deliverance has done, I can tell you. One of the things it did is certainly wake up a sleeping giant. And that sleeping giant was not one huge animal. It was many giants that were sleeping, that formed the big sleeping giant. So today we have congregations that own buses. Today we have congregations that own schools. Today we have congregations that have very powerful business people. I can give you one or two incidences. I think there's not too long ago I was talking to one of them who says, I would never leave Deliverance Church, because when he joined the congregation that he went to, he was pushing mkokoteni at the market, pushing the cart. He used to hand deliver things for people, and he told me, I used to live in Mukuru and I was comfortable because in pushing the mkokoteni, I would be able to feed my children and take care of my wife. I never dreamt I could become anything else. But sitting in a Deliverance Church congregation where Bishop Mark was the pastor, he repeatedly told us we can become better. He empowered our minds to see beyond our abilities. And I began to believe in God. Today, I met him when he was coming from China.
Wow.
Today, he's built houses for rental. Today, he's done, he even tells me that the times when he wakes up to sit and think about himself, he says, I can't believe I am who I am. And there's so many such testimonies of people that have received the word, acted the word, and the word has borne fruit. So we do have very successful people in the marketplace, not just business people. People who are well-studied, people who were challenged to go back to school. They didn't have degrees, they went and took on degrees, they did their masters, they did their PhDs, and today they're very influential people in the country because of the call. The challenge that you can become better. We also do have a very strong community presence. Very, very strong community presence where we are involved in the things that happen in the community. I think at one time Deliverance Church was involved in a MAP International, consultancy, where we were given the opportunity to speak to the other churches about upscaling their involvement on issues of HIV and AIDS. And I remember when MAP International picked us, I think they gave us about 9 different denominations to train on how to do that. So Deliverance Church does have community projects. We've worked very closely with Compassion International and many other organizations where we've taken care of children. We have children's homes. We have fed, we've seen Bishop Mark react during the post-election violence. He was one of those that were in the forefront. And when there has been extreme hunger, he was always one amongst those that has always taken food and other relief things to people who are struggling. So Deliverance Church is not just a spiritual house, but we are charged to go beyond the spiritual. In actual essence, the words that Bishop Mark uses would be act the word. Be out there doing what we say we do. So when he says love on others, love on them. Yes.
Thank you. And maybe we can talk a lot of things, and maybe before the celebration in December, we'll have another sit down with you. However, as you look, maybe what is one thing that would be like, this is what that changed? There's that one thing you're like, at this point, it was a turning point for Deliverance Church in your journey.
I think the intentional pumping of the words, we are a sleeping giant, we can make it, we have the capacity. And Bishop Mark began to draw on boards. You know, he's a former teacher.
Yeah.
So he would show us what our numbers can achieve us.
Yeah.
He would show us what we can do to get to where, and show us where we could get with our numbers. So one, truthfully, the conferences, because they became empowering stations. With those, people would leave those conferences totally changed. Yeah. The issue of organizing the regions better, the involvement of the regional and sub-regional overseers in doing mini conferences where they are, where they educated the pastors, where they challenged the pastors, and also things like, all said and done, Deliverance Church pastors began to buy land for the churches, also for themselves. The introduction of Ukombozi Sacco,
Yes.
where pastors were encouraged to put money and they would be granted loans that would buy them land. And now many pastors began to look better. They desired for more, so they worked even the harder. Let me say this for sure, Ken, and say, during those first years, we would go to a conference, and out there would be about 4 or 5 cars. All the cars belong to the Apostolic Council. Yeah. The rest of us would come in mats. The rest of us would come walking. I would love, and I know you have seen, that when we call for a conference today, our biggest struggle is the parking area. Where are people going to park? So the awakening, the intentional impartation of the words we can make it, of the words that we are not doing our best, the challenging of the pastors to operate outside the box got us to where we are.
That's one. And maybe as you look as the secretariat, the head of secretariat, I think you have the inner workings. When you look for the next 5, 10, 20 years, what is that one thing that if you're challenged today to criticize yourself, what is that one thing you'll be like, I would love in the next 5, 10 years, this is what I would like to transform the secretariat to be a better support for now. The giant has woken up, and when the giant wakes up, the spinal cord has to be strong. Otherwise, it will collapse.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy, that's something that has really been disturbing my mind. But in all intent and purposes, number one has been to digitalize so that we reduce the paperwork, so that we can be able to keep our records smarter and better, so that we can be able to track down congregation by congregation, how many male, how many female, so that we don't see a meeting and say we have a successful meeting when we actually have 500,000 members and only 10,000 show up at a meeting. So I think the tracking down of who we are in terms of numbers, in terms of age groups, so that we can tell where would we put our most resources. That's something that I would love to see us do. The other thing would be to set up desks that answer to different needs in the community in connection with the church, say a medical desk, where we would have somebody encourage our churches, encourage the regions to begin hospitals, to begin hospices. What is it that we can do to touch the community beyond the spiritual? An education desk, so that all the Deliverance Church run schools follow a certain curriculum so that we expect a certain outcome. Because right now we have children who are going to schools where they're taught totally different from what we teach them, which causes a lot of confusion because this is what they tell us at school and this is what you're telling us at home. So I would love to see Deliverance Church take the lead in Christian schools. And I know currently the Catholic Church and many others are doing a beautiful work in that area, but I think there is room for us to be able to get that. Then, of course, a professional desk where all professionals can come together and begin to encourage the younger. Because sometimes there is an outside view of the church where young people who feel like they want to become professional think, I don't want to become drabby in the church. If you tell them there's a lawyer in the church, say, which one? Where? What does he look like? You know, because they think there's no room for those that are in the marketplace in the church. And probably if they sat together, you know, Babu, sometimes I think, and I think wide, I say, when you look at some of the very big, successful business people, some of them belong to the church. And they can become an inspiration for others.
For us.
Yeah, so I am looking at the secretariat growing to a point where we make, or rather we feed the governing council with the needs of the church because we've been able to pick them up at the right time. So we say at the next conference, it looks like this is what the pastors would love to be empowered on. How do we do that? Through that digitalized system where pastors can put questions or even say their needs. So for every conference, be it the ladies' conference, be it the men's conference, so I'm looking at a hub of almost like a research center. What is needed now? What shall be needed in 10 years? Where we can have people who sit there and all they think about is where are we at and where are we going? Yes.
45 years from today, Deliverance Church will be at 100. For someone who will be seated on your seat, what would, the same way you talked about 2 files, and now you're talking about a whole Eagles team, ladies, daughters of there's Ukombozi, there's a whole secretariat building with different floors and amphitheaters. You're talking about hotels that will be built. Speak to that Reverend Margaret Muchai, 45 years today at 100. What will she speak? What will he speak?
You know, Babu, you're tickling me because just a little bit earlier, I was reading the word from the book of Isaiah, chapter 65, and I think it's about verses 21, where it says that at 100, you're a child. At 100, you're a child. So you may not be wrong. I might still be here at 100. And then it says, only sinners ought to die at 100. And I thought, and so for them, it's going to be an accursed thing to live to 100 because I think they will have a lot of struggles. But for us who are believers, at 100, you're still a child. So at 100, I'm probably a toddler right now, headed towards childhood. Let me say this. What I foresee is probably 45 years from now, this national secretariat where I see it will be serving Kenya alone. I'm seeing an international secretariat that will be serving the entire world. I see our media team not doing Kenya, but doing Kenya, Tanzania, you know, a whole media station that speaks to the entire world. I see our school system. I see people from America saying, I don't like what we're seeing here. We have international schools in any of the countries where Deliverance Church is, and saying, I will send my children there. Then they can come out here for holidays. So basically what I'm saying is that in the next 45 years, Deliverance Church should not be talking local. We already have changed our name from Deliverance Church to Deliverance Church International. So I kind of feel that the next move is towards making everything international, where we have an international bookstore, where we have digital. All the materials that we collect digital can be accessed by everybody from everywhere. So the person who feels, I came from Kenya, Deliverance Church, I'm now in America, can still access the information and keep the same spirit that they had while they're here. What do you think about having digital churches? So many people leave Deliverance Church and they go elsewhere and they're like, I feel so lost. We can maintain that if we had that digital hub up purely for Deliverance Church. You plug in deliverance, you eat deliverance, you sleep deliverance, you buy deliverance, because that is possible. I guess that's where the world is going to. And my take is that those that are coming after us, we need to carefully get people who have staff that can position us well in the digital world, because I think that's where we're going.
Thank you very much. I hear maybe I'll talk about maybe Deliverance Church Library. We need to have that to be able to store this wealth of knowledge, if it will be in a digital format or in books. And being the head of secretariat, I think that you should think about.
I want to add just one last thing
Yeah.
before I go. 22 years
Yeah.
at the Deliverance Church Council. Seated there is the only woman. I began when there were probably 30 or 33.
Yeah.
Now I think the whole council sits about 95. I'm still the only woman. Certainly, I am looking at a ministry where we will have more women leadership,
Yeah.
more women in leadership, not sitting in positions because they are women, but
Not affirmative action.
not affirmative
Yeah.
action. I don't believe in affirmative
Yeah.
action, by the way, because positions require people who are knowledgeable,
Yeah.
so that we have positive input. I'm just thinking that creating room intentionally. I think the way it's gone on, our sub-regional overseers, now we do have a few lady sub-regional overseers
Yeah.
that I would love to see rise to positions
Rise
of
up,
regional overseers, and then also create very intentional space and room for the youth.
Yeah.
So that you can actually say, we have lawyers who are young, they give input into the leadership councils. So looking across and saying, that is where we are going, let's start preparing ourselves from today.
Thank you very much. We'll be sitting with you also to speak with you, being the senior pastor of Two Rivers Deliverance Church.
Okay.
And that time we'll be just talking about your ministry as a pastor. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a good start on the journey of Deliverance Church at 55. Yeah. We'll be coming to all regions, the 42 that have been mentioned. We'll try to get to Zambia, Namibia, DRC, Congo, Tanzania, Uganda, Arizona, USA. We'll try and come and get the journey. Let's hear the journey of the tears, the laughter, and a journey of faith that will be coming. Please join us every night as we speak to about this journey, as we look forward to Jamhuri Park on Gong Road, as we have been invited for us to come and celebrate together the doing of the Lord, DC at 55. God bless you. Thank you very much. But now, before we close, I want you to look into that camera and speak to our fathers. In 1970, 1980, the ones that started this journey, at that moment they had congregations of 10 people,
Yep.
maybe Sunday school kids, or people calling them crazy people. What can you tell them today as we close?
I think what I want to tell them is that I want to really begin by, I can only posthumously celebrate Apostle Joe Kayo for taking the lead, believing in young people, because Deliverance Church was really begun by young people. All these apostolic council members that we see today, at that time were young. And I honestly want to say that our DNA is crazy young people. Those crazy young people are the ones that I call my leaders today. They are fathers. I am reminded many times when things look tough that they were young, but they never gave up. They gave up their professions. They gave up going to universities, and they decided they were going to take the Bible, and from the Bible, we find ourselves where we are sitting because they were faithful to the call. Honestly speaking, I cannot say that God would have blessed me more than allow me to work with Bishop Dr. Mark Karaoke, Bishop John Brown Masinde, Bishop Jimmy Kimani, Bishop George Gichana, Bishop Simon Kanyaru, and Bishop Paul Oselo. Just sitting and listening to them and working alongside them, I think was the greatest gift that God would have given me. You are all so phenomenal. I would not have asked God for better. It is because of you. It is because of your friendship, watching how you walk with each other, honor each other, serve each other. Honestly speaking, the DNA of Deliverance Church pleases God because you're our leaders. I want to say thank you so very much that you have lived out the call on your lives. There is not one of you that has not made a difference in the lives of thousands and thousands of people. I just pray that God would give us your energy. Where you're sitting right now, you're still full of energy, still conquering grounds that many other younger people would struggle to conquer. May the Lord give you a long life. May you continue to enjoy the blessings of your sweat. I dare say, God has you there for us. Kudos.
Amen. DC at 55, the challenge.